Welcome to Jesse Livermore Trading Mindset. Kindly subscribe our channel for more inspirational videos.
Chapter 1. The Market as a Psychological Mirror. Jesse Livermore said the market is never wrong. Opinions are, most people repeat that line as if it were a proverb. Something wise but distant. Something meant for textbooks or trading quotes framed on office walls. But Livermore did not speak in slogans. He spoke in scars. What he meant was far deeper, more uncomfortable, and far more personal. He meant that the market does not negotiate with your beliefs. It does not care about your conviction, your intelligence, or the elegance of your analysis. It simply reveals. And what it reveals, relentlessly and without mercy, is the truth of your psychological state when uncertainty presses in. The market does not test your strategy. That is the illusion beginners cling to. It tests your nervous system. Livermore discovered this long before he became a legend, long before fortunes were made and lost under his name. As a young man, watching price quotes change on chalkboards in bucket shops, he noticed something that had nothing to do with patterns or predictions. The same price movement would cause one trader to panic, another to hesitate, another to become reckless. The price itself was neutral. The reactions were not. In that moment, the real arena of trading revealed itself, not on the board, but behind the eyes of those watching it. Every tick of the market is a quiet interrogation. It does not ask loudly. It does not explain itself. It simply moves and waits. Can you stay calm while uncertainty breathes down your neck? Not once, but over and over again. Can you hold still when nothing is resolved? Can you refrain from acting when action feels emotionally necessary but strategically unjustified? This is not a test of knowledge. It is a test of emotional regulation. The chart is a mirror, not a metaphorical one, but a precise psychological instrument. It reflects impatience as overtrading. Entries taken not because conditions align, but because waiting feels like weakness. It reflects fear as premature exits, where profits are surrendered not to logic, but to the need for relief. It reflects ego as oversized positions, where risk is no longer calculated but justified by confidence, where the trade becomes a referendum on identity rather than a probabilistic event. When price moves against you, the sensation is often described as pain, but pain is the wrong word. What you feel is exposure. Exposure to uncertainty you thought you had neutralized. Exposure to the uncomfortable truth that you wanted reassurance, not risk. Exposure to the realization that you attached emotional meaning to an outcome that was never promised. Livermore understood that the market does not inflict suffering. Traders do that themselves. The market offers randomness, and the trader supplies expectation. The market offers probability, and the trader demands certainty. The resulting conflict is internal, not external, and it plays out again and again until the trader learns the lesson or leaves the game. The amateur stands before the chart and asks, "Where is price going?" It feels like the right question. It feels analytical, even professional, but beneath it lies a deeper desire. The desire to eliminate ambiguity, to replace uncertainty with narrative, to believe that the future can be known if one is smart enough. The professional asks a quieter, more powerful question. Can I remain emotionally neutral if I am wrong? That question dismantles the illusion at the core of most trading failures. Because it acknowledges something the ego resists with all its strength, that being wrong is not a mistake in trading. It is a constant condition. Losses are not signs of incompetence. They are operational costs. The market does not reward prediction. It rewards alignment with probability and discipline under pressure. Livermore's greatness did not come from superior forecasting. It came from psychological acceptance. He accepted that individual trades were meaningless. He accepted that outcomes were random in the short term and only meaningful in aggregation. He accepted that his job was not to control results, but to control behavior. Most traders try to dominate the market. Livermore learned to stand beside it. He observed without emotional commentary. He participated without attachment. He let price confirm or deny his position without interpreting it as a personal judgment. Where others saw validation or rejection, he saw information. This is where the first true edge is born. Not in indicators, not in secrets, but in emotional neutrality. The ability to execute a trade and release it. The ability to watch price move without narrating every fluctuation as hope or threat. The ability to accept uncertainty not as danger, but as the environment in which opportunity exists. The market will always expose who you are when control is removed. It will reveal whether you crave certainty, whether you need to be right, whether you equate loss with failure or feedback. It will surface every hidden belief about worth, intelligence, and control, and it will do so patiently, repeating the lesson until it is learned. Most traders respond by trying to fix the mirror. They change indicators, timeframes, strategies. They search for better answers to the wrong question. Livermore learned that the mirror is never the problem. The reflection is, to trade successfully is not to predict the future. It is to become someone who no longer needs to. Someone who can exist calmly in uncertainty. Someone who understands that consistency is not produced by accuracy, but by alignment. Alignment between risk, probability, and emotional discipline. The market is not your enemy. It is not your ally. It is your reflection. And it will continue to show you exactly who you are until you become someone capable of seeing it clearly, without flinching, without arguing, and without fear. Chapter 2. Position size is emotional leverage. Most traders believe position size is a technical detail, a line in a spreadsheet, a percentage calculated and forgotten once the trade is placed. They treat it as arithmetic, cold, rational, detached. But Jesse Livermore understood something far more dangerous and far more powerful. Position size is not primarily about money. It is about pressure. It is about how much emotional weight you place on uncertainty. Your position size isn't a number. It is emotional leverage. Leverage does not merely amplify profit and loss. It amplifies experience. It magnifies sensation. It turns ordinary price movement into something intimate and invasive. When size is too large, the market stops being a landscape you observe and becomes a force that acts on you. Every tick carries emotional mass. Every fluctuation feels loaded with consequence. Price no longer moves. It speaks. And what it whispers is rarely calm. Livermore watched this destroy traders who were otherwise brilliant, men with superior analysis, impeccable timing, and deep market knowledge, undone not because they were wrong, but because they were too involved. Their ideas weren't flawed. Their sizing was. They wagered more emotional capital than their nervous systems could sustain. When size is too big, the trade becomes personal. You stop seeing price as information and start interpreting it as intention. A pullback feels like betrayal. A pause feels ominous. Your P-fail begins whispering threats, then promises, then ultimatums. Hold and you risk pain. Exit and you risk regret. Under that tension, your plan doesn't collapse dramatically. It dissolves quietly. You tell yourself one small lie, just this once. You justify one adjustment. The market is different today. You move one stop, it'll come back. The market didn't change. Your psychology did. Oversized positions compress time. They turn minutes into emergencies. Candles no longer unfold. They attack. You are no longer trading a system. You are negotiating with fear in real time. And fear is a terrible risk manager. It does not think in probabilities. It thinks in absolutes, survival or threat, relief or danger. Now or never. Livermore understood that discipline is not a moral trait. It is a biological one. No amount of intention can override an overloaded nervous system. If your body is in fight or flight, your best rules become suggestions. Your patience becomes fragile. Your objectivity disappears. That is why size matters more than most traders realize. Too large, and clarity is impossible. Too large, and the market owns your attention. You check price compulsively. You stare at the screen as if it owes you reassurance. You cannot walk away. Not because you don't trust the trade, but because you don't trust yourself to endure the uncertainty. But when size is small enough, something profound happens. The emotional volume drops. The urgency fades. You regain perspective. You are calm, observant, detached. You let the trade breathe because you can breathe. Price fluctuations return to what they always were: information, not judgment. Livermore sized his positions not by greed, but by awareness. He asked a different question than most traders ever think to ask: how clearly can I think while holding this position? That was his real risk metric. If a position interfered with sleep, focus, or emotional neutrality, it was oversized, no matter how correct. It looked on paper. If you cannot leave the screen without anxiety, your size is wrong. If you feel compelled to watch every candle close, your size is wrong. If your mood changes with each tick, your size is wrong. This has nothing to do with courage. Oversizing is not bravery. It is impatience disguised as confidence. True strength in trading is the ability to remain psychologically stable while nothing is certain. That stability cannot exist if your position size is demanding emotional performance. You cannot sustainably deliver. Most traders believe smaller size means smaller ambition. Livermore knew the opposite. Smaller size protects the one resource that actually compounds clarity. And clarity is what allows patience. Patience is what allows winners to develop. Winners do not run because you believe in them harder. They run because you stop interfering. Large size invites micromanagement. It forces premature decisions. It turns normal retracements into existential threats. Small enough size creates space to observe, to adapt, to let probability express itself without constant interruption. There is an identity shift hidden here, subtle but decisive. The amateur trades to feel something: excitement, certainty, validation, relief. The professional trades to execute, to observe behavior, apply process, and remain internally unchanged regardless of outcome. Position size determines which identity shows up when money is at risk. Livermore understood that the market punishes emotional intensity, not ambition. It does not reward how badly you want it. It rewards how consistently you can behave when nothing is guaranteed. Consistency does not come from willpower. It comes from designing conditions under which discipline is possible. A correctly sized position feels almost boring. That boredom unsettles many traders. They mistake it for lack of opportunity. But boredom is the absence of emotional distortion. It is the state in which decisions are clean. In that quiet, you can hold without hope and exit without regret. When size is right, losses feel informational, not personal. Wins feel earned, not urgent. You stop trying to extract meaning from individual trades. You begin to think in series, in expectancy, in long-term edges, rather than short-term validation. Livermore didn't seek maximum profit from every trade. He sought maximum alignment between his strategy, his psychology, and his ability to endure uncertainty without flinching. Position size was the bridge between theory and execution, between knowing the rules and being able to follow them under pressure. The market does not ask how much you want to make. It asks how much uncertainty you can carry while remaining whole. Your position size answers that question every time you enter a trade. And when that answer is honest, the market changes texture. It becomes quieter, slower, more legible. Not because price behaves differently, but because you do. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop reacting. You start responding. In trading, the goal is not to feel powerful. It is to remain clear. And clarity, protected by proper size, is what allows mastery to take root. Chapter 3. Why panic always arrives early. Panic never waits until the damage is done. It does not arrive at the bottom when price has fully revealed its hand and the decision feels obvious. In hindsight, panic arrives earlier, always earlier. At the precise moment discipline is required. This is not an accident of psychology. It is the nature of uncertainty interacting with an untrained nervous system. Jesse Livermore understood this long before most traders ever noticed the pattern. Panic is not a response to loss. It is a response to not knowing, and not knowing reaches its peak, not at resolution, but at the edge. When price hesitates, when direction pauses, when nothing confirms or denies your position outright. That is why most traders exit right before the move. They do not exit because their thesis is invalidated. They exit because the emotional pressure becomes intolerable. They mistake emotional relief for being right. The moment they flatten the position, the tension dissolves. The heart rate slows. The screen feels quieter. And in that relief, the mind concludes, I made the correct decision. But the market has not spoken yet. Only the nervous system has. Livermore watched this happen repeatedly on Wall Street. Traders would enter with confidence, supported by analysis, structure, and logic. Then price would stall, not reverse. Just stall, it would drift, retrace slightly, move sideways long enough to agitate the mind. The trade was still valid, but it was no longer comfortable, and discomfort, when misunderstood, becomes urgency. Urgency demands action. Action creates certainty, and certainty, even when false, feels safer than ambiguity. So they exited, and shortly after, often painfully shortly after, the market moved exactly as expected, not because the market was cruel, but because it was indifferent. It had always required patience. Only those capable of waiting were still present. Livermore waited, not because he lacked fear. That myth flatters the ego but misrepresents reality. Livermore felt fear deeply. He felt doubt, pressure, and uncertainty, like anyone else. The difference was not emotional absence. It was emotional containment. His position size allowed him to endure the waiting without being consumed by it. He understood something essential. Panic is early because it is anticipatory. It imagines futures that have not occurred and reacts as if they already have. It pulls potential pain forward in time and demands resolution. Now the trader is no longer responding to price. He is responding to a story about what price might do. This is why panic feels so convincing. It speaks in absolutes. It frames in extremes. Get out before it's too late. You're about to lose everything. You were wrong. Panic does not deal in probability. It deals in survival narratives. And when survival feels threatened, logic becomes negotiable. Livermore knew that the market rarely rewards immediacy. It rewards endurance. Trends do not emerge cleanly. They hesitate. They test conviction. They shake loose those who require constant reassurance. The market does not move to accommodate comfort. It moves to discover where commitment truly resides. Think of uncertainty like ocean waves. They are not occasional. They are constant. If your boat is overloaded with emotional weight, fear of loss, hope for validation, the need to be right, every wave feels like a storm. The boat pitches violently, balance is lost, and the instinct is to abandon ship. But if the boat is balanced, if emotional weight is properly distributed, the same waves become motion. They lift, they carry, they are no longer interpreted as threats, but as the medium through which progress happens. The water did not change. Your relationship to it did. Most traders attempt to eliminate discomfort entirely. They tighten stops to avoid emotional exposure. They exit early to avoid anxiety. They seek constant confirmation so they don't have to sit in doubt. In doing so, they remove themselves from the very conditions that allow meaningful gains to occur. Discomfort is not a flaw in trading. It is the price of participation. Professionals understand this. They do not expect comfort. They expect tension. They understand that uncertainty is the environment, not an error. Panic arriving early is not a warning. It is a checkpoint, a test of whether they are trading their process or their emotions. Amateurs interpret discomfort as danger. Professionals interpret it as information, not information about the market, but about themselves. When panic arises, the professional does not ask, should I get out? He asks, has anything structurally changed? If the answer is no, he waits. Waiting is not passive. It is an active psychological stance. It requires restraint, presence, and trust in probabilistic thinking. It requires the ability to let the market remain unresolved without forcing closure. Livermore knew that clarity in markets often comes late. By the time certainty arrives, opportunity is gone. The bottom, when it forms, is rarely dramatic. Panic has already done its work by then. Those who could not tolerate ambiguity have exited. What remains are traders who are willing to endure incomplete information. This is the quiet truth. most never accept. Fear is not a forecast. It is a sensation, and sensations, no matter how intense, are not instructions. Trading mastery does not come from eliminating panic. Panic is human. It comes from recognizing its timing and refusing to let it dictate action. From understanding that the moment you most want relief is often the moment patience matters most. The trader who can sit with early panic without obeying it earns something rare. He remains present when the market finally commits. He is still there when the move begins. And in trading, being present at the right moment is not luck. It is the reward for psychological endurance. Panic always arrives early. Mastery is learning not to leave with it. Chapter 4. Detaching from outcomes. There is a moment in every trader's evolution when something quietly, almost invisibly, breaks. Not the account, not the strategy, the identity. And when that identity breaks, everything changes. Here is the shift that changes everything. You are not paid to predict. You are paid to execute probabilities. Most traders never fully absorb this. They repeat it, quote it, nod along to it. But emotionally, they still trade as if each position is a verdict on their intelligence, discipline, or worth. They believe they are trading markets, when in reality they are trading themselves. Every win becomes validation. Every loss becomes an indictment. Objectivity cannot survive in that environment. The moment your self-worth attaches to a single trade, you have already lost clarity, because the trade is no longer a probabilistic event. It has become personal, and personal things demand emotional defense. Jesse Livermore learned this lesson the hard way through cycles of spectacular success and devastating collapse. What history often reduces to numbers and dates was, for him, an internal reckoning. He discovered that the market was not his greatest threat. Attachment was. Attachment to being right. Attachment to outcome. Attachment to the illusion that control could be exerted through will, intelligence, or intensity. Livermore eventually detached from outcomes, not out of indifference, but out of necessity. He realized that caring about individual results was incompatible with long-term consistency. One trade meant nothing. 10 trades meant nothing. Even a string of losses meant nothing, provided the process remained intact. Only process mattered. This is difficult for the human mind to accept because the mind craves meaning in the immediate. It wants each event to mean something, but trading does not work that way. The market does not assign meaning to individual outcomes. It distributes results across time, unevenly and often unfairly in the short term. Meaning emerges only in aggregation. Livermore began to see losses differently. They were no longer evidence of failure or incompetence. They were rent. Rent paid to stay in the game, a cost of accessing opportunity in an environment governed by uncertainty. You do not argue with rent. You budget for it. When losses are seen this way, something subtle but profound happens. Fear loosens its grip, not because losses stop occurring, but because they stop threatening identity. There is nothing left to protect, no image to defend, no ego to rescue, only rules to follow. This is the paradox most traders miss. Detachment does not reduce performance. It enables it. When you are detached from outcomes, you stop forcing trades to feel productive. You stop exiting early to secure emotional relief. You stop holding losers to avoid admitting error. You begin to act in alignment with probabilities rather than impulses. Decisions become cleaner because they are no longer contaminated by hope or dread. Livermore understood that the market does not reward effort. It rewards alignment. You can analyze endlessly, predict brilliantly, and still fail if your execution is distorted by emotional attachment. Conversely, you can accept uncertainty fully, execute a simple edge with discipline, and outperform far more intelligent participants. True detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you care about the right thing, not the outcome of this trade, but the integrity of your process. Not whether you win today, but whether you behaved consistently with your rules. Success becomes behavioral, not emotional. This is why professional traders often sound calm, even indifferent, when discussing results. It is not because they lack ambition, It is because they understand leverage at a deeper level. Emotional leverage is dangerous. It amplifies noise. It narrows perspective. It makes randomness feel personal. Detachment restores scale. When you truly accept uncertainty, you stop arguing with the market. You stop asking it to validate you. You stop demanding fairness in the short term. You accept that randomness is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. And once you stop resisting that truth, trading becomes quieter, slower, clearer. Livermore learned to think in expectancy, rather than events. A single trade was just one data point in a long series. Its outcome said nothing about the future and nothing about him. The only question that mattered was simple and unemotional: did I execute my edge correctly? If the answer was yes, the trade was a success, even if it lost money. If the answer was no, the trade was a failure, even if it made money. This inversion is where mastery begins. Most traders do the opposite. They reinforce bad behavior with lucky wins and punish good behavior with unlucky losses. Over time, this erodes discipline and trains emotional reflexes that sabotage consistency. Detachment breaks that cycle. It rewires reinforcement around process, instead of outcome. There is a freedom that comes with this mindset that few ever experience. You are no longer hostage to the next candle. You are no longer elated by wins or crushed by losses. You operate from a neutral center. Calm does not come from certainty. It comes from acceptance. Livermore did not become consistent by predicting better. He became consistent by needing less validation, less control, less emotional payoff from being right. He understood that the market offers opportunity, not assurance. And once you stop demanding assurance, you can finally see opportunity clearly. In that state, fear has nowhere to attach. Loss is no longer an existential threat. It is simply feedback within a system designed to include it. You are no longer trading to protect yourself. You are trading to execute rules in an uncertain environment. And that is the quiet truth at the heart of mastery. When there is nothing left to protect, discipline becomes effortless. When outcome no longer defines you, consistency becomes possible. You are not paid to predict, you are paid to participate calmly, probabilistically, and without attachment. That is what detaching from outcomes really means. Number 5, discipline is quiet. Not dramatic. Most people imagine discipline as force, as intensity, as a clenched jaw and narrowed focus, a heroic act of willpower in the face of temptation. They imagine discipline as something loud, visible, almost cinematic. Jesse Livermore knew better. Real discipline does not announce itself. It does not surge. It does not perform. Discipline is quiet. It is repetition without emotion. It is doing the same correct thing whether you feel confident or afraid, bored or energized, frustrated or euphoric. It is not driven by mood, belief, or conviction. It is driven by rules executed consistently, in an environment that does not care how you feel. This is where the romantic version of trading collapses. Discipline is placing the same trade size whether the setup feels obvious or uncomfortable. It is risking the same amount after a win as after a loss. It is stopping for the day not because you are angry, shaken, or tired, but because your plan says you are done. No argument, no justification, no exceptions disguised as intuition. Livermore understood that discipline is not something you rise to in moments of stress. It is something you fall back on, and you can only fall back on what has been practiced when nothing was at stake. Discipline is built in boredom, not crisis. This is why most traders drift away at this stage. Early in the journey, learning feels exciting, new strategies, new insights, new possibilities. The mind is stimulated, progress feels dramatic, but discipline offers no such rewards. It does not feel like advancement. It feels like sameness, the same setups, the same rules, the same restraint, over and over again. The ego hates this. The ego wants moments, breakthroughs, big wins that feel deserved. Discipline offers none of that. It offers stability instead. And stability feels unimpressive to a mind addicted to stimulation. Livermore watched traders abandon profitable methods. Not because they stopped exciting, but because they stopped exciting, they mistook boredom for stagnation. They confused emotional flatness with lack of opportunity. They did not realize that boredom was the signal that emotion had finally loosened its grip. Discipline does not feel powerful in the moment. It feels ordinary, almost forgettable. There is no adrenaline in following rules you have already followed 100 times before. There is no rush in not taking a trade that doesn't meet criteria. There is no applause for closing the platform when your daily limit is reached. And yet, this is where professionals are separated from everyone else. Professionals are not more motivated. They are more neutral. They do not require emotional engagement to perform correctly. They have trained themselves to act without drama, to trade without narrative, to execute without needing the trade to feel special. This is deeply uncomfortable for most people because it strips trading of its psychological rewards. No identity boost from being right, no emotional release from a big win, no catharsis from revenge trading, just rules executed calmly day after day. If this is resonating with you, pause for a second, drop a like, not for an algorithm, not for visibility, but as a private commitment to yourself that you are ready to trade differently, that you are willing to let go of drama in exchange for consistency, that you understand. This is the part where most people quietly exit the path. Livermore knew that discipline is not heroic. It is mechanical. It is boring by design. And that boredom is not a flaw. It is protection. It protects you from emotional overreach. It protects you from impulse. It protects you from yourself. Intensity feels productive, but it is unstable. It spikes and crashes. Discipline endures. A disciplined trader does not need to feel good to trade well. He does not need confidence to execute. He does not need certainty to participate. He shows up, applies his rules, and steps away. The outcome does not change the process. The process does not change with mood. This is why discipline feels so unrewarding in the short term. There is no immediate emotional payoff, but over time, something else emerges: consistency. And consistency is not exciting. It is reliable. It compounds quietly, invisibly, while others burn themselves out chasing intensity. Livermore learned that the market does not reward passion. It rewards alignment. Alignment between behavior and edge. Alignment between risk and tolerance. Alignment between rules and execution. Discipline is the mechanism that maintains that alignment regardless of internal weather. The amateur trades when he feels like it. The professional trades when conditions align. The amateur stops when emotion overwhelms him. The professional stops when the plan says stop. This difference seems small in isolation. Over time, it becomes everything. Boredom is the sound of professionalism because boredom means nothing inside you is being threatened or gratified. It means the trade is no longer about proving anything. It means you are no longer negotiating with fear or greed. You are simply executing a system in an uncertain environment, and in that quiet repetition, something powerful happens. Your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries to trade well. You become someone who does, without effort, without drama, without internal conflict. Livermore did not build his legacy on moments of brilliance. He built it on long stretches of restraint, on trades not taken, on rules obeyed when no one was watching, on discipline so quiet it was mistaken for passivity by those who did not understand. But the market understood, because in the end, mastery does not look like intensity. It looks like calm repetition. It looks like boredom. And boredom sustained long enough becomes dominance. This is the point where most people turn back. If you stay, everything changes. Number 6. The professional mind emerges at some point, quietly, without ceremony. Something changes. There is no bell that rings. No moment of triumph. No dramatic realization that announces itself as transformation. One day, you simply notice that the noise is gone, the urgency has faded, the internal argument has fallen silent, and in that silence, a different way of operating begins to take shape. You stop trying to win. You start trying to behave correctly. This is the emergence of the professional mind. Jesse Livermore reached this state not through brilliance, but through exhaustion. Exhaustion from emotional highs that led nowhere. Exhaustion from being right too early, wrong too loudly, and confident at exactly the wrong times. What finally shifted him was not knowledge, but acceptance. The acceptance that the market could not be conquered, persuaded, or impressed. It could only be responded to. The professional trader does not wake up asking what the market will do today. That question belongs to the amateur, because it is rooted in hope. The professional asks something far simpler and far more demanding. How must I behave if this unfolds in any direction? Behavior replaces prediction. Losses no longer shake you because they are no longer interpreted as threats. They are expected, budgeted, integrated into the logic of the system. A loss does not interrupt your identity. It does not require emotional recovery. It is simply one outcome in a distribution that was never promised to be smooth. Wins, too, lose their power. They do not excite you, not because they don't matter, but because excitement implies surprise. And nothing about a win should be surprising if you understand probability. You expected some wins. You expected some losses. The outcome of any single trade is unremarkable. Only your behavior remains relevant. This is deeply unsettling to people who come to trading seeking emotional stimulation. The professional mind is not thrilling. It is stable, and stability, to an untrained psyche, feels empty. But inside that emptiness is freedom. You are no longer chasing markets. You are no longer trying to catch moves, force opportunities, or extract meaning from price action. You respond. You observe conditions. You execute when criteria are met. You stand down when they are not. The market moves first. You follow, not submissively, but intelligently. Livermore understood that the crowd is always emotional, because emotion feels like participation. When traders feel nothing, they assume they are doing nothing wrong. The professional understands the opposite. Emotional neutrality is not disengagement, it is precision. This is where the crowd thins out. Most people do not fail because trading is too hard. They fail because mastery offers no comfort. It offers no constant reassurance, no daily sense of accomplishment, no emotional payoff for effort. Mastery asks you to give up drama, identity, and the need to feel special in exchange for consistency, and that trade is unacceptable to most. The professional mind does not need to feel confident to act. It does not need clarity to wait. It does not need certainty to participate. It functions independently of internal weather. Fear may appear. Excitement may flicker. But neither is obeyed. This is the difference. When a loss occurs, the professional reviews behavior, not outcome. Did I follow my rules? Did I size correctly? Did I execute without interference? If the answer is yes, there is nothing to fix. No emotional repair required. If the answer is no, the mistake is behavioral. Not emotional, not market-driven, not external. This level of accountability is uncomfortable. It removes excuses. It removes stories. It removes the ability to blame conditions, volatility, or bad luck. You are left alone with your behavior, and that is exactly where growth becomes possible. Livermore often said that the hardest thing in trading was not analysis, but sitting through uncertainty, sitting through boredom, sitting through discomfort without reaching for action to make the feeling go away. That capacity to remain still while the market remains unresolved is the signature of the professional mind. If you have felt this shift, even briefly, you know what it feels like. The calm is different. It is not relief. It is alignment. The absence of internal conflict, the sense that nothing urgent is required, even when money is at risk. If you are chasing this state, that matters too, because awareness precedes embodiment. The moment you recognize that trading is about behavior rather than outcomes, you are already stepping away from the crowd. If you felt this shift, or if you are actively moving toward it, pause for a moment, comment below. One sentence, one realization, not for validation, not for visibility, but to make the shift conscious, to mark the point where you stopped trying to feel good and started trying to behave well. And if you want more content like this, subscribe, not for strategies, but for the mindset that allows strategies to work, because tools without alignment only accelerate failure. This stage is where most people quietly disappear, not because it is too complex, but because it is too simple, too repetitive, too emotionally unrewarding. They return to prediction, excitement, and the illusion of control because it feels alive. The professional stays. He stays when nothing is happening. He stays when results are flat. He stays when discipline offers no dopamine. And in staying, something irreversible occurs. Trading stops being a performance. It becomes a practice, a craft, an expression of psychological order in an uncertain environment. Livermore did not outlast the crowd by being smarter. He outlasted them by becoming internally quieter, by needing less from the market, by no longer asking it to provide identity, meaning, or emotional resolution. This is the professional mind. It does not chase. It does not argue. It does not hope. It observes. It executes. It waits. And in a field dominated by noise, waiting calmly is not passive. It is domination. Number 7. The self-control edge. History remembers Jesse Livermore for his timing, for his legendary short positions, for fortunes made and lost with almost mythic intensity. But those who look closely, those who actually study the arc beneath the headlines, see a different truth emerge. Livermore's real edge was not timing. It was not patterns. It was not even insight. It was restraint. Restraint is invisible, which is why it is so often overlooked. You cannot point to it on a chart. You cannot backtest it easily. You cannot post it as proof of intelligence. But restraint governs everything else. Without it, timing collapses. Patterns dissolve. Insight becomes noise. Livermore understood that markets do not defeat traders. Traders defeat themselves slowly, repeatedly, and with remarkable consistency, not because they lack information, but because they lack self-control. He knew a simple hierarchy that most never see clearly. The trader who controls himself controls his size. The trader who controls his size controls his risk, and the trader who controls his risk controls his fate. This is the self-control edge. Markets reward emotional neutrality. They punish urgency. Urgency is not speed, it is desperation. It is the internal demand that something must happen now. It is the belief that waiting is dangerous, and action is safety. And that belief quietly destroys more accounts than bad analysis ever could. Urgency forces entries that are not ready. Urgency forces exits that are not justified. Urgency forces size that cannot be carried. Livermore learned often painfully that the market senses urgency not as intent, but as weakness. It exposes it. It stretches it. It waits for it to fracture discipline. The market does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you can endure. Restraint changes that relationship. When you master yourself, the market stops feeling hostile. Not because it becomes kinder, but because you stop demanding things from it that it was never meant to give. You stop asking for reassurance. You stop asking for fairness in the short term. You stop asking it to protect you from uncertainty. The market becomes neutral, not predictable in direction, but predictable in behavior. It will test patience. It will create ambiguity. It will reward consistency over intensity. It will shake out those who need certainty and carry those who can live without it. This is where the paradox reveals itself. The paradox that defines trading mastery. The less you need the market, the more it gives. When you no longer need a trade to work, you can hold it properly. When you no longer need a win, you can let it run. When you no longer need to be right, you can adapt without ego. Needing creates pressure. Pressure distorts behavior. Distorted behavior destroys edge. Livermore eventually saw that every mistake he made traced back to a single root: loss of self-control. Not ignorance. Not lack of opportunity. Loss of restraint through overconfidence, impatience, or emotional exhaustion. His greatest victories came not when he felt most brilliant, but when he felt most contained, when he was quiet internally, when he traded less, sized appropriately, and allowed the market to reveal itself, rather than forcing interpretation onto it. Self-control does not mean rigidity. It means responsiveness without compulsion, the ability to act decisively when conditions align and to do nothing when they do not, the ability to endure flat periods without forcing trades, the ability to step away without feeling like opportunity is slipping through your fingers. This is the edge that cannot be copied, and Yon can learn a strategy. Anyone can recognize a pattern. Almost no one can consistently restrain themselves when money is at risk. That is why the crowd never disappears entirely. It churns, it rotates, it replaces itself. The same emotional patterns repeat with new faces, new accounts, new stories. The market remains the same because human behavior remains the same. Livermore understood that mastery was not about conquering the market. It was about becoming someone the market could not exploit psychologically. When that happens, trading simplifies, not because it becomes easier, but because fewer internal conflicts remain. Decisions are no longer debates. Losses are no longer crises. Wins are no longer intoxicating. You move in sync with probability rather than against it. The market stops feeling like an adversary. It stops feeling like a judge. It becomes a mechanism, neutral, impersonal, precise. And in that neutrality, you find something rare, control where it actually matters. Not over outcomes, not over direction, but over yourself. That is the final edge, the one beneath all others. Outro. The next step if this journey has shifted how you see risk, discipline, or yourself. Do not stop here. Insight without continuation fades. Understanding without application dissolves. The logical next step is deeper, sharper, and more confronting. Understanding why most traders sabotage their winners and how Livermore learned to avoid that trap. Because protecting capital is only half the game. Letting profits mature is where psychology is truly tested. Watch the next video recommended on your screen now. Not to learn another strategy, to refine the mindset that allows any strategy to survive. Master yourself first, then let the market follow.